how to repair cracks in render, and I'm going to show you step by step how I do this. Pretty bad looking crack, hasn't got worse with over a year, so nothing to really worry about. But again, these cracks will eventually let in some moisture and will get worse. If they freeze, they'll pop out. So I'll go step by step, show you how I go about repairing it.
Subscribe to Daddy's Smack Plastering.
So repairing this crack, and that's going to involve some preparation. I know it doesn't look pretty yet, but we'll get there. So first things first, preparation. You gotta cut it all here, and you can do this with a hammer and bolster or a small Kango hammer drill. I like to cut it with the grinder, and for that reason is just to make sure I don't actually blow off more plaster than what needs to be. If you are going to do it this way, make sure you got goggles and masks on, and ear defenders if you find that it's too noisy, and dust mask as well. As you can see, it's spitting up a lot of dust here. Thankfully I'm outside and I have goggles and a dust mask on. I didn't want to wear gloves as sometimes I find they can get in the way some, and I think that's good to keep good grip of a grinder. Quite a dangerous tool. And you can see I've just went around the crack, probably about an inch either side of the most of it anyway. And again, this is quite a common area, the crack on a house, and there's probably one more to do above another window on the back and maybe one on the front. This was the very worst one, so that's why it's getting all the attention first. So as you can see, it's actually putting up quite a fight. I have it scored pretty well, at least down the scratch code there and bits that I can see. And again, if you are grinding it and you score the block underneath it, don't panic too much. Don't expect your blocks to be perfectly lovely and smooth when you do chip render often. So just trying to release this. It's actually a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. Most times when I do cut render, it just pops off, because most times it's a lot more boast. It was boast there just where I'm starting, but again, I want to sort of do a few things that I think will help stop this cracking, and we'll share all those things with you. But yeah, it's taking a bit of battering here to get off, and again, if I didn't go ahead and score it might have popped off. And what that was, guys, was a rusty nail, which wouldn't have been helping things. It was right in the crack, so whether or not it was there holding up an old light or something, plant pot, anything, and it found itself maybe patched into the wall. The house isn't actually that old, it's only like 30 years old, but again, 30 is a long time for people to patch away on things and nails to, instead of getting pulled out, getting driven in. I wouldn't recommend diving in anything that's going to rust, as it can expand and pop off. Again, people do ask me why does it crack above the doors and windows, and that's because one, you've got so many different materials actually meeting. Above most windows and doors there's a concrete head. I'll show you that hopefully during the video here, and what that does is that supports the load across the gap of the window or the door, and that holds up the wall above, and in this case the wall above, and obviously the roof as well. And it's solid concrete, where then you have blocks either side of it and above it, which are, they won't be as solid. They're still solid concrete, but they're nowhere near as dense and nowhere near as strong. And you also tend to find that the concrete heads are smoother than the block, so blocks tend to have a bit better grip. And then again, so we know that it's holding weight, it's a stress point, and again windows and doors open and close causing vibration, and vibration's gonna possibly crack or render your plaster on the inside, and again it'll crack it at the sort of easiest, smallest, shortest, easiest point. It's not gonna crack anywhere else but its easiest part. And what's easier between a load bearing area that's made of multiple different materials? You've got salt and cement that's cracking, that's on top of, you know, block and smooth concrete. So that's sort of, hopefully that answers why it cracks here. And again, just continuing to chip off. Just wanted to leave this in. Didn't want to cut out to show you that preparation. Don't underestimate the preparation. You know, if you don't prep, it's gonna fail. You know, you gotta do your preparation first and prepare so that it'll last as long as possible. So what I'm doing here is getting all the loose out and dust. You cannot plaster over dust, guys. It just won't bond to anything. You want to get back tight to the block and the concrete here, and the only way to do that is by dusting it all down. You could hose it all down as well, or even hoover it out if you wanted to. This is actually probably my second time giving it a bit of a brush out, and I'm really concentrating on that top area. You can see kinda looks bad at the minute. It's not cracked through the concrete or anything, the concrete head, but the blocks up there didn't look great. Pretty bad crack in them. But have a few things I'm gonna share with you. One being ASBR here. So not only am I gonna paint ASBR onto everything here to help kill any last tiny bits of dust, but also to help it bond. And ASBR is also a waterproofer as well, so quite a lot of good things with ASBR. And this is pure ASBR I'm painting on, and the idea of this is it'll help bond. I've already got all my dust out, so I'm happy my dust is out, and then I'm going just for a bit of a sealer and a bit of a bonding agent here. I will also put some into my render as well. It's not big enough for me to want to scratch it, but if you want to do the next stages, scratch it one day and come back and float it the next day, I'm going to be happy enough just to finish this all in one go because it's such a small job. Again, I wasn't too concerned about anything, so I think it'll be strong enough with the SBR in one coat. And again, if you do have time to scratch it one day and come back the next day or two and float it out, it will actually work out that bit stronger again, just letting it cure in between hands and building it up in layers. But I'm not too concerned, such a small job, so it's okay. Here's another bit of a secret, guys. I'm going to use some expanded metal. It's actually, just acts like scrim tape. Any sort of guys who mostly do interior plastering, this is great for external cracks. It's galvanized wire, so shouldn't crack, shouldn't rust. And what I'm planning on doing with this is bedding it in with a bit of a first coat, cutting it all to size now. I have another trick up my sleeve as well. I'm going to share that with you. I find bedding it in will make it pretty strong. So get it all cut to size before you mix up, guys. Mixing is going to be the next stage. Preparation, get it chipped off, brushed out, some SBR painted on, and get the mesh all cut to suit for size before you even bother mixing, so that you know everything's ready to go. So mixing, as we were saying previous there, I'm putting fibres in this mix, I've previously mixed 4:1 sand and cement, plastering sand, and there's SBR in there and a wee taste of waterproofer, very little. And the fibres should again also help reduce any cracking and reinforce the render. So really buckles and braces with this, guys. It has been done already some time, but again, in a year or two I'll show you all the results, no problem. That Ruby battery mixing drill is so handy. It's not even funny. It's so good just around the house, around doing me Pat's jobs, me homers, one rooms, one wall. Just pull it out. Quick setup, quick, easy, mix, wash, trowel up and go. But yeah, just filling in the crack here first. I'm actually putting a lot of force in, guys. Any voids there, I'm wanting to fill them right up with this mix. With these reinforcements in it, this SBR. A lot of guys would think 4:1's too strong, but with our aggregates, maybe our aggregates are different than other people who claim that this is too strong. And again, if you ask me in a year's time, what's this like, I'll take a picture and post it on the channel or put it on the end of a video somewhere. But yeah, so basically did like a wee first coat there, pressing it in, fill as much voids as you can until the render will not go in anymore. And now I'm just bedding in my wire mesh, and you want to sink this in pretty deep, guys. You want it to be completely covered in the sand and cement, and I'm just going to sink it in and smooth it a little bit, and again still keeping it inside the crack so it's not out flush. I'm going to allow myself to give it an extra wee coat again on top of this, and it can be a bit fridgery. You might need some sort of steel nails and a lobo nails with the washers on top, just pinned in, something that won't rust, stainless steel or good galvanized ones you know that last a long time outside. Again, my mix is waterproof too, so nothing should make it rust, but then metal, it might, I don't know, might attract a bit of cold, which might make it sweat a bit, which down the lanes can make it rust and stuff. So always go for stainless steel and galvanized as best you can. But you can see, still putting a bit of force in here, just trying to bed that mesh in, keep it in behind, and I will actually let this, with the SBR in and the heat, this won't take very long to actually stiffen up, so that I can get the next layer on and get it finished up. We're so close to finishing now, guys. Just the final coat to go on, and using a Refina stainless steel trowel to whack it in again, and the Pointsman Hawk. I was using a little cat tongue Refina, found it nice to fit it inside the crack and stuff, and could get the pressure to force the sand cement into the crack and make sure it's well applied into all the voids to give a good bond and good bite. So the way I'm coating this on is pretty simple when you've got a wee track like this, guys, is press it in again, make sure it's all in, there's no voids. I'm just using my trowel, as you can see, to straighten it up. And again, that does take some off and let it breathe a bit. You could, if you weren't confident to be able to float it up, you could maybe steel trowel that in some, but I would rather let it pick up and then work it in a bit more with the float and then sponge it after that. So I'll show you that on the next stage, but obviously this part's all about filling it on out flush either side, and then sort of open it up a little bit and leave it ready for the finishing stage. So we're almost there. As soon as we get it finished, we'll clean up. So again, just gonna finish it off, guys. Really could practically finish it with a float and even a wee run over that then with a steel trowel, but you can see it's floating up pretty well with the SBR in it. I know a lot of people can't work with the SBR in it. It does make it a bit stickier, but again, you gotta do what you gotta do. And to me, the strength and the waterproofness that the SBR is going to give me, with the ability to help bond the material, especially for wee jobs like this, it's a must. and you can see it's finished, no problem for me. Again, timings will be your thing. You don't want to let it get too dry, and you don't want to try and float it when it's too wet. You just sort of want it stiffish, but not too dry like powder. So that will be your main thing to make sure you get right. And like I say, I'll be able to show you this in the future. I'll show you a wee picture about a month later when it's been sitting a month and dried out. And I'm planning on doing acrylic render over the whole house. So there will be some fine cracks that will also be tested with acrylic render to see whether or not it'll still crack through it. I was told by a rep one time that acrylic, because it's like a rubber based silicone render, it has the ability to stretch some, so it shouldn't crack on hairlines. And there's a few hairlines in this house, so we will put that to the test in the future. So just finishing off, guys, with the refiner sponge float here, and sort of give it a bit of a damp down. And the reason for that was because I wanted to sort of wash the edges a wee bit just before I actually sponge it up. So when you are patching, the edges are the main thing that'll show up a patch. If it's a bump or too hollow when it's painted, or even the acrylic render is in, it'll show up. If the joints and stuff, if nothing's straight, it'll show up. So again, might look messy now, but I will get it cleaned up and tidier than this. But that's how you repair the crack, guys, and render. Lots of stages there covered, and also I think a lot of good tips there, and so many things extra I did to try to reduce the chances of this ever cracking. Hopefully it never does, but time will tell, and I'll be here to show you my results in time as well.
Subscribe to Daddy's Mac Plus.